John Williams, who joins us now from Lahaina on Maui. I'm guessing you listen to the podcast, John, rather than listen live, because what is it, 2:30 in the morning there?
Yeah, it's a little early.
A little early, yeah.
I do catch it sometimes live, but most of the time it's definitely wherever I find my podcast.
All right. Listen, I hope everything turned out for you and yours. Hope things are okay. You have a place to live still. Tell us about what happened.
So I'm very fortunate. My condo is in the burn zone. There were 4 buildings in my complex that burnt down. One of them less than 50 feet from my building. But mine was spared, so I'm super fortunate.
Wow.
Now, there's no power, no water.
Still?
And there's so much. Where I live, there's not.
Wow.
The rest of the west side really should be open. I disagree with the governor and the mayor talking about staying away from the west side. Mm-hmm. But, so I can't live in mine. I'm living in a friend's vacation rental condo for now. And the most difficult thing is there's no timeline yet. I could be out of my place for a month, could be out for 6 months, could be out for a year.
My gosh.
No way of knowing.
Wow. What do you do there in Maui?
Yeah, I'm a real estate agent.
Okay. That's got to be tough right now. Whew.
I always say that no one has to buy on Maui. They get to buy on Maui.
Yeah.
And they get to buy on Maui because they've been successful somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So there's always high demand here. So even right now, I'm actually working with clients that are looking at other parts of the island.
What was your experience on the night this all started, back on August 2nd?
7th.
Well, it actually happened on August 8th.
Okay, 8th.
I actually was in Texas. My daughter got married the weekend before, so I was scheduled to come back Sunday after the fire started. But as the fire started, I started seeing it on social media, started following it, and then come to find out my friends that were here didn't really even know what was happening because almost immediately the cell phone towers went out. So they didn't know that there was a fire happening unless they were right there. So from Texas, I was actually watching this happen with better information than they were.
That's incredible.
It was horrific how fast it was happening.
Well, and then the sirens didn't sound. So does it make any sense to you what they're saying, that they didn't want people to drive to the fire? That's why they didn't turn the sirens on?
So, I do hear a lot about this on social media. They are called the tsunami warning system. Literally every month they come on the first day of the month. I think it's at 11 o'clock or 11:45, and a big siren comes on, and you go, okay, there's the tsunami alarm.
Okay.
So honestly, if I was here and I heard that, I would be thinking tsunami first. Now, we had a spark up happen a couple days ago in Kanapali, which is about 3 or 4 miles north of Lahaina, and a fire started there and was starting to burn behind some neighborhoods. And the sirens did go off. But now I think everybody would think of it as an all-around emergency signal and not just a tsunami signal.
So you agree with their decision not to use the sirens because that would have freaked people out and they would have done the wrong thing?
I don't know. I know if I heard it, where I live is maybe 10, 12 feet above sea level. Mm-hmm. I would have gone uphill for sure.
Yeah.
If I heard that. So in a sense, I guess, there is some validity to that in a sense.
What about water being unavailable to fight the fires? What do you make of that?
So Maui has all kinds of problems that date back to decades and decades ago, and one of them is water rights. So when developers develop areas, they ask the state or the county for rights to water access. So there was a neighborhood that got water access, and, so water is diverted to this other area purposely for those developments.
Okay.
So now why they didn't just override that and flood the water toward Lahaina, there's no excuse for that, in my opinion. But water rights are a huge problem here.
We're speaking with John Williams, who is a resident of Maui and is experiencing the aftermath now because the air was too toxic for you to stay at your condo, right? Isn't that the reason
Correct.
that you left and now you're staying at a friend's place?
Yeah, when I first got back, I did spend one night there, and I've had a horrendous cough since then. So I definitely am not going to go back.
Air for so toxic still, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about the road barricades. Did you have you encountered that? Is that making sense to you, or do you see something nefarious behind that?
Yeah, so that's another one that's a huge misconception.
Okay.
On Maui, we have trade winds every day, and the trade winds can be from 10 to 30 miles an hour, and that's somewhat normal. So anytime there's new construction going up, they put up dust barricades to prevent dust from flying into other properties. So it makes sense to me that they would do the same thing here and surround the areas with all the ash to at least try to minimize it. I mean, you're not going to be able to stop all the ash, but it's normal. Now, driving down the road, when you see both sides have this black tarp up, it is disconcerting for sure. And, when you drive through the area and everything is gone, I mean, like everything, you feel like you're in a dystopian movie from the future.
Yeah.
And especially like to get to my condo, I had to go through a National Guard checkpoint. And they're all friendly. Everybody's cool. But to think I'm an American, I have to go through a checkpoint to get to my house.
Yeah.
It feels like a movie. It's a little unnerving.
John, I have a quick question for you here. How close, when the fires were burning, how close were you to them? I know you were in Texas when it started, so maybe it was. I just trying to figure out were you back, and there were still fires happening, or had they already ceased by then?
So even now, I don't think they've said it's 100% contained.
Okay.
It's like 95% contained. So there's still potential hot ember things that can kind of spark up. My building, like I said, was literally less than 50 feet from another building that was completely destroyed.
Unbelievable.
I know. I've been listening the last few days, especially knowing I was getting ready to talk to you all about this, and you talked about fireballs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was one of my neighbors at my complex that had to run out of there, and they witnessed a huge fireball. They said it was like 10 to 15 foot in diameter, come floating over the buildings into the middle of our complex and land on top of one of the buildings, and that caught the building on fire.
Oh, wow.
And the neighborhood I live in is relatively new construction. It all has that hardy plank siding and new asphalt roofs. So in general, we think that new construction prevented most of our buildings from burning. But these ones that were affected were hit by one of those big fireballs that you've heard about.
What about the other things we're hearing about? The lasers, the colored blue things that didn't burn. Is there any validity to any of that, do you think?
Well, fortunately, it's 2:30 in the morning, so if there's some lasers, I'll get to see them really easily right now.
Right.
But, no.
No.
The fires happen on Maui every year. I mean, earlier, it was either this year or late last year, I was sitting on my lanai, and I could actually see another fire burning above Lahaina that covered this whole mountain that has a big L for Lahaina Luna, which is the high school there. And literally, I've lived here for 6.5 years, and every year there are fires somewhere over here. I mean, it's just summer, and summer is dry here. Lahaina gets about 11 inches of rain a year, so it's just dry. So it's nothing unusual. This one just happened to happen at a place that hit Lahaina versus somewhere else a little further south.
Some other things we're hearing is that drones are being prohibited. You can't stop along the roadside. That's prohibited.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any of that?
Yeah, I mean, the side, stopping by the side of the roadside, I completely understand. I mean, it's a highway up there.
Yeah.
And if you have all these people pulling off on the side of the highway, you're just heading for some sort of accident. So that I understand. Drones. I do have friends that fly drones, and they have been denied when they apply for the flights. And, I don't really have a good reason that the government would do that other than just not wanting to extend viewing of, all the destruction. And it is complete destruction.
So what about this foreign police presence we're hearing about?
I haven't heard that at all. I mean, I see National Guard and I see regular police. I don't see anybody that's not American.
Okay.
All right. So you said that you haven't seen any lasers personally. Obviously, there's been a lot of videos, especially, if you've been watching the show, like you said here in the last few days, there's been a lot of videos that people have taken both before and after the fires started that clearly show something. We just played a thing, some weird lights above the smoke there as it was burning on August 9th. We've shown videos that show almost like horizontal little dashes of what can best be described, for lack of a better term, lasers. So you maybe haven't seen them. Have you talked to anyone who has, or do you have any more information on that being a local there?
No. I mean, honestly, I just think that's a hoax.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If fires weren't so normal here, I might believe something like that.
Okay.
But, and I did see the video you're talking about with the lights. I have no idea what that was. Maybe it was the Chinese space lasers. I don't know. But
yeah.
I mean, seriously.
It just happens all the time here. So this is not unusual. It's just where it happened this time.
You sound way too reasonable, John. You've taken all the air out of the conspiracy theories. What about the reaction to Biden? We saw signs, people yelling at him, people booing wherever he went. Do you get the impression or the feeling that even Hawaiian residents are done with this guy now?
I don't know anyone that was happy he was coming.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
And I would say that Maui is 3 or 4 to 1 Democrat to Republican.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's no hope that that's going to change, I don't think. But I don't know anyone that was happy he was coming here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or happy with, what he was saying. There's this Hawaiian rental. I'm sure you've seen that sign. Put it back up if you would for a sec. The Hawaiian rent-all establishment had a sign out that said, "Sorry, you almost lost your '67 Corvette in a fire, Mr. President."
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he said that. That was ridiculous.
Okay. I mean, it's always about him.
So, are you, in your daily routine, you're driving around. Have you seen with your own eyes? And I know Pat kind of addressed this earlier in the conversation, but I just want to make sure. Because we're getting tons of pictures that show charred remains, 100%, and then blue umbrellas. Charred remains, and then, oh, look, I found all these blue T-shirts. Charred remains and blue fill in the blank. Have you experienced any of that?
I've seen those pictures. I have not seen them in person.
Okay.
They do have pretty much all the burn area blocked off.
Right,
and one of the things about me having access to my condo through the National Guard checkpoint is that I don't go anywhere else. If I go anywhere else, I can lose the rights to go to my condo.
Wow.
So I'm not willing to risk that. Yeah. But I have seen those. That's the freakiest thing I've ever seen. I don't get it. But
yeah, very weird. But you haven't seen any evidence of that in person?
No.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
What about the story? We've heard from many people that during the fires, when it was at its peak and people were fleeing from them, there were barricades and they were trying to keep people from leaving and headed to safety. And the only people who survived these areas went around the barricades. Have you heard that as well, or is that being exaggerated too?
Well, no, it's true, but there were power lines down across tons of roads here.
Okay.
So if you're a police officer and you see power lines across the road, are you going to let a car drive on it? Probably not. So the firemen on Maui, the police on Maui, everybody that lives here either lost their houses or knows people that lost their houses, has relatives that lost their houses, and relatives that died. I have multiple friends that are gone, like they died. I have multiple friends who lost all their, like literally everything. I have one couple friend that literally ran from their condo about 3 or 4 miles to escape the fire. And they said that as they were running, the flames were not going up because of the wind. The flames were going across the road. So they were literally like froggering it through flames. And, they got not horrible burns, but they got burns from having to run through the fires. And I mean, literally left with nothing but the clothes they had on.
So okay, you told us that this is something that Hawaii experiences on a yearly basis, right?
Yeah.
So have they just always been in unpopulated areas? Is that why we've dodged bullets of incompetence from government officials, or we've never seen anything like this as Americans? And so I'm just wondering, where have the fires been in relation to Lahaina in the past?
Yeah. So in the decades past, there was tons of agriculture on the west side and in central Maui. So those areas were tended by farmers and crops and stuff. So they were well irrigated. They didn't have easy to burn grass and things like that. As Maui has grown and become more of a tourist destination, it wasn't as feasible to keep all that agriculture. So that agriculture has left, and it's been replaced by untended grassy areas. In the last decade or two, the fires have just happened to happen in areas that were not populated. And that's not to say that there haven't been a few houses lost in the past, but there's never been one that really hit right in an area that's super populated. And Lahaina, Front Street is a very tourist area, had tons of businesses, restaurants, stores. Cruise ships would dock offshore and come in, and so it was super, super touristy. But 1 block off Front Street was all residential. And it goes up the mountain, and these are multi-generational homes where, there's grandma, grandpa, husband, wife, maybe a brother, sister, and then all their kids. And so you'd have 10, 12 people in a house, and those houses were built in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So they were not up to current codes. A lot of them were single-wall construction, all wood. They would add on places to the house and stuff without getting permits done. And that's part of the problem is Hawaii and Maui in general, building anything has so much red tape and so much permitting that a lot of people just don't get the permits because it takes 6 months to a year just to get through that process. And if you just want to add a bathroom, it's going to take you a year to add a bathroom. I actually another thing that I don't know if y'all have heard about, but the governor a few weeks before this happened passed a law about housing and emergency procedures. And this is one of the biggest conspiracy things going on. He passed a law to help affordable housing be built faster. There's so much red tape and everything, so many groups. Like in Lahaina, there's a special management area that has certain rules. There's a historical district that has certain rules. So if you want to do anything in those areas, you've got to get it signed off by so many different people that it just takes so much time. I saw a statistic that it's like $233,000 per affordable house in additional costs just to keep up with rules and regulations. Wow. Just the red tape.
That's incredible.
So that's not the building cost. That's just the regulation cost. So he passed this law to basically bypass that. And that's one of the things that the governor ran on was to build affordable housing quickly because we're something like 40 or 50,000 houses short for the state of Hawaii. So he gets this passed, this hits, and then everybody says, oh, look, he's doing this just to confiscate land. And literally it's to help build houses.
Very interesting, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Kind of another weird twist. But it seems as though you think this is more normal than people on the mainland do, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible.
Yes,
it is absolutely horrible.
Right. But there's reasonable explanations for why these things are happening. Yeah.
So Jeff Bezos and Oprah Winfrey are not buying up all these houses and stuff, you being a real estate guy?
If they are, they need to call me.